And welcome back to the First and Goal podcast. My name is Lewis. Next to me, as always, is my beautiful co-host, Laraib. As we are here to break down week 4 of the NFL season, Laraib, it's hard to think, but we are almost a month into this NFL season. It's flying by so far, but we are super excited to cover each and every week, breaking it down, predicting all the weeks. We've had a ton of fun so far. And here we stand, Laraib. Now, picking these games every week, there's like now just a ton of parity. No one is having too crazy of a game. I feel like a lot of the teams are bouncing back and forth, Rob. So if we just want to go straight there, bring us to the picks.
Let's pull them up 2-2. Oh my God, a Monday night thriller. Came down to Tennessee, Miami, and the Seahawks, and Tennessee came through for me in the clutch, and Tyler Huntley was supposed to win a game for Miami at home. Okay. Your lock does not hit, but still it was a really tight week. But I'm glad I pulled off the win, and now it's 2-2.
Yeah, I'm done betting on against you, at least for crappy teams playing crappy teams, because I thought Cleveland was going to win a lot of that game, and I felt like an idiot for not picking them. Then they proved me right by picking the Vegas Raiders. So I like picking the fun, exciting games. I feel like I have a little bit more of a tell. For these crap teams, screw them. All right. Well, I'm not. We'll get into it in a second. But let's just go there, Laura. Monday Night Football last night. Two games going on. Love that. One of the games clearly not that exciting. Two teams that are now sitting at 1-3 as the Titans pull off the victory, 31-12. Any quick thoughts on that game, Laura?
Well, as someone who had to watch that game because I was facing Tony Pollard in fantasy, I mean, what were the Titans doing on that fourth down? Why did we run it in with Tony Pollard, huh? To ruin my fantasy game. And then besides that, it looked like Mason Rudolph came in and did a serviceable job for Will Levis, who got injured and didn't want to come in for the rest of the game. And of course, gave us another meme worthy shot of him on the sideline. But
Oh.
no, like you mentioned, Lewis, the big game was the Seahawks against the Lions, just a high powered offenses facing against each other. And the Lions just couldn't be stopped on offense. And Seahawks are missing 4 key starters on the defensive side of the ball with Boye Mafa, Uchenna Nwosu, Leonard Williams, and Byron Murphy all out. Weren't able to stop that run game at all. And then when they were selling out for that, one-on-one outside with Amon-Ra and Jameson Williams is just not a great idea. And that was that for the Seahawks. A couple of bad missed calls, especially on that DK Metcalf 2-point conversion and on that DK Metcalf, no call pass interference when he's being
Tyler
great.
Lockett, offensive pass interference as
Also on
well.
that one, that was a key fourth down that the Seahawks could have gotten, but sometimes it just doesn't go your way. But I feel really good about both of these teams going forward. The offenses for the Lions at least starting to put up some more points than they were early on. And then for the Seahawks, Geno Smith really shows that he is still a quality starter in the NFL.
The only thing that I would say that discouraging from that game is the secondary play from the Detroit Lions. And I get it. You drafted these young guys. There's a lot of pressure on them to perform, and they're being put in these super high level situations, but they just were not holding up. And, I forgot that one guy who kept making splash plays here and there. Robertson, I think, Meek Robertson. He had some splash plays here and there for Detroit. But besides that, Terry Arnold was just getting abused on the outside, a lot of penalties, a lot of sloppy play. Should have been, like you mentioned, a flag for pass interference in the end zone against DK Metcalf. And it just seemed like all the misdirection was really getting to this back end of the Detroit Lions secondary. Their front seven kind of had their worst game of the season as well. The rushing attack from the Seahawks was actually pretty solid. Charbonnet and Walker combining for over 100 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, I mean, you can't ask more from your running backs than that. So I'm a little discouraged by this Detroit secondary. But what I am encouraged about is this was Jared Goff's first complete full game of the season where he looked like the Jared Goff from the past 2 years with Detroit. I mean, perfect 18 for 18 passing. He just looked clinical. The running game complemented the passing game. They had their trick plays in there. This was a Ben Johnson, Jared Goff masterclass, and they looked like they were all the way back on track. At home, this is exactly what you need to see from this offense to have that belief that they have this Super Bowl ceiling. And even if the defense has these little problems here and there, if the offense is playing like this, it'll cover up a lot of those wrongs, Larob.
Yeah, I think these are two very solid teams who have a great shots at winning their division, Lewis. But let's go ahead and move on to our, quarter season playoff predictions, and more specifically, who we like as our division winners, Lewis. So let's go ahead and get started in the AFC. We have our big three in the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Ravens. But besides that, it's looking very murky on, of course, the Houston Texans can win that division very easily. But besides that, who are we penciling in or who are we canceling out over there in the AFC?
Yeah, the thing about the AFC is, with all due respect to Pittsburgh, the division winners are pretty clear right now. I mean, there's not much debate on who's coming out of these divisions. Like you mentioned, KC, Baltimore, Houston, and Buffalo are coming out of their own respective divisions without much trouble. I thought the Jets may have had a little bit better of a shot in the AFC East, but disappointing loss to Denver. And I'm just not seeing it with this team right now for the New York Jets. So I have some reservations there. And then Baltimore, you just saw it last Sunday night. The belief in their talent. Derrick Henry just looks like a monster. And this defense is slowly starting to get back into shape. They looked really good. They're just so talented, Larob. You really can't count them out. And I have more faith in Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry offense than I do in Pittsburgh, despite the 1 game difference between them. They still have 2 games to play, and Pittsburgh has not faced the gauntlet of a schedule they're going to face later in the season. So, but that means, I'm just going to go ahead. My 3 wildcard teams as it stands now, I do have Pittsburgh as that odd man out. So they are, I guess, in the 5th seed. My next team, to your delight, is the Los Angeles Chargers, Jim Harbaugh. Even with the injuries and stuff, I just love what Jim Harbaugh has been able to do. Just instill this tough mentality, this tough-minded culture in establishing the run. Both lines of scrimmage, they've been able to dominate, except for last game against the Kansas City Chiefs defensive line, missing 2 tackles. But the early bye week, I think, actually helps the Chargers because of all the early injuries they've had to accumulate and of just the style of play that I think this is going to help them just springboard into a very, or an easier second half of their schedule, which I think they will be able to take advantage of. And then my final team, Larob, I really tackled with this. Just not a lot of super impressive teams. And it's like, who am I going with here, Larob? And I'm not going to lie, this answer might shock you, but I'm going with the Denver Broncos as my 7th playoff team
Mm.
in the AFC. Now, I had texted you the other night because, I was laying in bed after the games and I just kept thinking about football. It's how my mind works instead of, important things in life. And I was like, I wonder what the Saints odds are to make the playoffs right now. Because if they were plus to miss, I was going to bet a lot of money on it because I like hedging my emotional bets. But I was looking at some other teams and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and log this to see what stands out to me. And the Broncos right now, plus 310 to make the playoffs. They just won a very tough game on the schedule on the road against the Jets. But Larob, they have a schedule that they can really do a lot with. And let's just call a spade a spade. This offense has not been impressive whatsoever, except against the Buccaneers, last week. But what we saw from this defense all season long, the amount of sacks they're getting, the pressure they're able to get, all these guys Browning on the outside, Pat Surtain in the back end. Vance Joseph has done a great job with this defense. And I think a defense, and then you have this Sean Payton, just conservative, push the ball down the field. They had their best rushing performance of the season with Javonte Williams against the Jets last week. And I just have faith in Sean Payton as a coach and, this talent on this defense that they can actually make a push here. Bo Nix gets more comfortable in the offense, has more games similar to his game at Tampa than maybe last week. But, you still play the Raiders twice. You still have games against the Panthers and against the Falcons, the Browns in there. There's some winnable games in this stretch for Denver that I think, especially in that stadium, in, Mile High, tough place to play, that if they get to 9 wins, I could seriously see them making a playoff push, Larob.
We agree on our first 2 teams being Pittsburgh and Los
Ah,
Angeles.
okay.
But
But
call me vanilla here. Call me playing it safe. I'm going with Cincinnati as that bottom team for the same reason
Boo.
that you're picking the Denver Broncos is the same reason I'm picking the Cincinnati Bengals.
Not at all. I'd love to hear
You are
this.
picking the Broncos because they have a really stout defense and they have a very easy schedule. And I'm just flipping that coin. I'm saying, well, the
Okay.
Bengals have a stout offense and they also have a really easy schedule. And I think Joe Burrow, when they're in those tight games, he's going to be able to pull it out in cases where we just won't be able to see Bo Nix do that. And the Cincinnati Bengals, they do play in a tough division. They still have to place the Ravens, who they play this week. That's going to be a great game. And so that's also one angle where you can look at it and say, well, they have a couple losses like that, and the Broncos can easily sneak in. But a team who I'm not counting out as well, let's move on to some of our maybe sneakier teams.
Wait, Laraib, hold up. Before you move on, I just want to say on Cincinnati's point, I want to just get your response to this. Have they not played some of the easiest games on their schedule already and have not come to play? I mean, you're talking home against the Commanders, home against the Patriots, a game that was winnable at Kansas City. Like, how many more layups are still on the schedule? A team that historically has not played well against Cleveland, has, historically split with Pittsburgh, and still 2 games at Baltimore, or not at Baltimore, but 2 games against Baltimore. Their full division schedule is still ahead of them with their toughest, or I guess easiest opponents. They squander that opportunity. So what is to make me believe, besides just the prior belief in this talent, that they're going to go ahead and make the playoffs at this point? Because I have not seen enough from this defense to make me believe that. And I love Joe Burrow, obviously. I love Jamar Chase. I love what they're able to do offensively. That just what I've seen them do in the past. I'm not discounting that. And if Joe Burrow is this elite level quarterback that we say he is, you need to make the playoffs in your prime. It's just that simple. Like, if you're that type of guy, this is what you do. But it just, I feel like they really kind of squandered the opportunity, and they need to show me a lot more defensively because they have not been getting any pressure. Their defense has been getting cooked, Laraib. So where is this belief coming from?
The belief is coming from playing the Browns twice still, the Steelers twice, the
Not
Giants,
a
the
W.
Raiders, and the Cowboys.
Not
Those are the things that I'm circling that gives me hope. Now, historically, the last couple of years, they've really been slow to start the season. And that's also just kind of just picking at me in the back of my brain, telling me they're going to pick it up. They're going to pick it up. Lou Anarumo, he's had his moments, especially early in the season,
so did Jaden
but I
Daniels.
think they are going to figure it out. It's just, it's the same reason why I'm kind of down on the Texans for the same reason I'm kind of down on some other teams. It's just something that just tells me there's a flip that can switch halfway through the season, towards the end of the season. The teams have the ability to kind of just turn it on. And this is the NFL. We're not talking about the NBA here, where teams are just going to start punting, to start the season. I think they're going to continue to pick things up week by week, and we'll see a lot from this Bengals team that we had high hopes for.
All right. So before I cut you off, you were going in a direction of some of our dark horse AFC playoff teams. And whenever we say this, it's like, oh, so what? We're just gonna shout out the teams that are right there on the border. Like, that's pretty lame. But Laura, I wanted to see how you pursued this. Who are some of your dark horse playoff teams at this point?
Well, Denver Broncos for the exact same reasons that you mentioned, right? Just solid defense and an easy schedule. But another team that I have circled, Bazooka Joe Flacco came in for the Indianapolis Colts. And, they were up big in that game before Anthony Richardson went down. But still, he went out there and he distributed the ball to Josh Downs, to Adonai Mitchell, to Michael Pittman Jr. And that offensive line really held up in that game. Now they're playing against the Steelers, and so they weren't able to rush that ball that well. And Jonathan Taylor is dealing with a high ankle injury. But that Colts offensive lineman, Lewis, has been playing very well the entire season. And now you bring in Bazooka Joe. And we've seen, last year was the year of the backup quarterback. And we're kind of seeing something similar this year, right? Where we have Andy Dalton come in to backup as a backup. We have Joe Flacco coming back in as a backup. There's a path for the Colts that I see right through where they sneak in against one of these teams like the Bengals, who maybe they don't flip that switch. Maybe they continue to keep on falling, or a team like Pittsburgh, who maybe Justin Fields turns back into a pumpkin, or a team like the Chargers where who's just battling injuries all the time. I see a path for the Colts, Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, this seventh seed is not easy, Laraib. And if you want to go chalk with the Bengals, that's fair. And if you wanted to just say something, crazy like I did, not that crazy because I really do believe in this Denver Broncos team. But it's just hard for me to like make a plausible case for some of these teams on the outside. But all I'll say is,
Are you gonna give me a team?
look, I watched a playoff game, and this team was down 28-0 at one point in the game. And they came roaring back and won this playoff game. You know who that team is, Laram?
It was the Jacksonville Jaguars.
The Jacksonville Jaguars with Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence. Look, they should be 3-1 if it wasn't for stupid mistakes in each of the three games. Obviously, Buffalo, that was a loss, whatever. But if ETN just doesn't fumble before the end zone against Miami, and then against Cleveland, all the fourth and goal mistakes and all the bad play calls, and the same thing for Houston. You have a 3-point lead, and you had so many opportunities to make it a two-possession game, and you kept squandering it. Like, this team has the talent. It has the defensive pieces. It obviously has the offensive pieces. And they can't put it all together. Whether it's inconsistent play from Trevor Lawrence, whether it's turnovers, whether it's missed assignments, penalties, a lot of it, Doug Peterson, just coaching mishaps, Press Taylor. They obviously are a good team. Like, I've seen them play good football. They just can't piece it together for a 48-minute stretch. And I don't know what needs to happen, but if there's any team that looks, kind of different whenever they go overseas, that is the Jacksonville Jaguars. And they're about to have a 2-game stretch in London later this month, not next week, but the 2 weeks after that. And so if they pick up this win next week, go into London, get 2 big wins, then have a bye week, all of a sudden you're sitting at 3-4. I feel better about this team. And I'm not going to count them out yet. I know I should, and they have every reason that they've shown me every single reason for me to count them out, but I'm not quite there yet.
And I mean, I have to agree, right? I know you're really high on the Texans, but what I've seen out of them the past 3 weeks has not been pretty. They struggled to move the ball against the Bears and really shut that game out. They got smacked by the Vikings on the road. And then in this one, a really close game at home. And their issue has been penalties, and it has been that offensive line. And so if there's a clear path for them as well to maybe to win this division, maybe it's going to be on the backs of this Texans team not living up to the hype and that offensive line really struggling. And so that's a pick that I also like, Lewis, from out of you.
Yep. So let's go ahead, Laraib. Let's move over to the NFC. A lot of tough decisions, a lot the tougher decisions in this conference. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my division winners because I know we're going to disagree on a few of these here. Starting with my number 1 seed. I didn't really put these in order, but I kind of pieced it together. I do have Detroit as my number 1 seed. I think they win this division. I like the momentum they're building, the defense getting better. Young defense, they learn from some of these mistakes, especially in the secondary, like I mentioned. I have Philly winning the NFC East. I don't really feel great about it, but they're such a better team when A.J. Brown is playing. They're going into a bye week this upcoming week. And when they get him back, they get Smitty back. They can unlock more of this offense. I've seen, maybe it's just PTSD as a Saints fan, seeing what Jalen Carter and that defensive line was able to do against us. But I know they have a high ceiling defensively. They just need to be able to bottle that up and put it together for a multiple game stretch. So I do believe in Philly. San Francisco in the NFC West, it's just hard to pick against them. They have not looked good. And I will be honest, I do like the Seahawks a lot. And I did pick the Seahawks in my preseason to win this division. But I can't quite get there yet with Seattle. So I am going to go with San Francisco. And then for the NFC South, I'm picking New Orleans. Screw it. I hated that game. I saw the worst loss in the division besides Carolina was that loss that Tampa had at home to Denver. I mean, that's inexcusable. Now, in the grand scheme of things, that's a loss against an AFC opponent, which is one of the least valuable games on your schedule, so you can afford to lose it. But still, I mean, I've seen them look awful. Whereas the Saints, they have a real case, Laraib, to be 4-0 if it wasn't The offense has put them in positions to win the last two games. They're just defense not being able to pull together clutch stops, or the offense able to sustain enough drives to have them with the ball at the end. Just unfortunate situation sitting at 2-2. But I do like their schedule going forward, so I do have faith in New Orleans. Atlanta and Tampa are going to make it tough. They both have a lot of talent, but I am going with New Orleans.
So we agree on 3 out of our 4 teams.
Okay. I
And
think
the
I know
team
which
that
three.
division that I disagree with is the NFC North.
Yep.
I'm picking the Minnesota Vikings. You can tell me I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm just in too deep in this Vikings lore, but that defense has been playing great. And Sam Darnold has also been playing great. And I think, a big thing has also been the schedules. And this Vikings schedule, Lewis, might be cookie butter cheese. The Jets, the Rams, the Colts, the Jaguars, the Titans. Um, those are some really easy games. They still have to play the Bears twice as well. I think there's a clear path for them. I've been saying that a lot. A clear path for this Vikings team with the best receiver in football, with potentially the best defense in football. They have a way. And at 4-0, they're traveling across the pond this week. And so that could always be a trap game. But they can easily be 5-0. And that's why I like them to win their division.
Well, let's see if I have them making the playoffs, Laura. Detroit, Minnesota. I think Minnesota's had a great start to the season, but it's 11:59, Laura. So we know what happens when the clock strikes 12.
You
I'm
told me
not
that
saying
last week. You told me that last week.
look, and you know what? I'm gonna go ahead. And reveal my wild card teams because let's just get to it. I have Green Bay, I had Minnesota, and I had the Seattle Seahawks as my final 3 wild card teams. Um, Oh, look, you were right, Laura, or you are right, Laura. I did say, hey, this is the game. Sam Darnold shows his true colors. And you know what? He did. He did, damn it. He did not play well in that game. Now, he had some great moments. That throw to Justin Jefferson down the sideline was awesome. And, hitting guys in stride, doing what he needs to do. But he had some stupid Sam Darnold plays littered in there as well. And if it wasn't for some crappy kicker for Green Bay and some just stupid decisions by Jordan Love, I think the Packers outlast the Vikings and just win this game in the long run. So
So you're talking to me about the course of a football game. If something doesn't go one team's way, then the other team would have won. That's just football, Lewis.
okay,
If
but it
you're
was
telling me
self-inflicted mistakes,
if the
Laura. That's
Vikings
what I'm
don't muff
saying.
that punt before the half ends and then the Packers score that touchdown, then it's not 28-7, it's
Okay.
28-0 going into half. I can tell you the same thing. That
That's
game
fair.
was
That's
over
fair.
in the first quarter and a half.
But it wasn't because the Packers had an opportunity to take the lead in that game. And to Darnold's credit, he had the ball, took it right down the field, got a field goal, made it a 2-possession game. So I'm giving him his flowers, Laura. I
But
will
you're
tell
telling
you
me it's
that.
11:59 and
It is
30 seconds.
11:59 and 3 seconds. Okay, he's
Okay.
got some
So
time
he's
on the
got one
clock.
more. He's got one more left in him.
He's got some time on the clock. He's got the Jets next week, so he's chilling. Revenge game, but we'll get into that one later. So I do want to give Minnesota their respect there. Green Bay, I just believe in the talent. Jordan Love coming back. He looked shaky to start, but found some of those guys offensively, and I think they will be fine in the long run. Tough division though, tough schedule for Green Bay, so I don't love that part. But thankfully, they took care of the 2 wins or the 2 games they had without Jordan Love against the Colts and the Titans. So I feel good, just belief in the talent, kind of like how you have your faith in the Bengals. And then finally, the Seahawks, 3-0 start to start the season, lost last Monday night, but still showed a lot of high level plays, a ton of talent offensively. And if that defensive line gets back together, they are a formidable unit. It was just unfortunate. They all were missing in the same game against one of the best offensive lines in the country. So huge shout out. I really like what Seattle's doing over there. I think they can build momentum onto this and continue forward, Laura. Who are
Yeah,
your 3?
my wildcard teams are Detroit, Seattle, and Green Bay as well. And that means we both have the Dallas Cowboys missing the playoffs, and they have just looked awful. And now you have Micah Parsons banged up. DeMarcus Lawrence banged up, how much time that they're going to miss. And simply what we've said all season long, they have not been able to run the ball. And of course, you got lucky when you're facing Devin Singletary and you look like you can stop the ball from being rushed on you, but that just simply isn't the case. And now, you pay Dak all this money after CeeDee Lamb and the whole offseason, you give him his money. You paid Marco Parsons, and now it just kind of looks like, where does this team go from here? Looks like Mike McCarthy's going to be done after this season. And, it's going to take a miracle for them to make these playoffs, in my opinion.
Yeah, for Dallas, it's just, I mean, this next few weeks are some of their toughest games, one of their toughest just stretches in their schedule without Micah, without DeMarcus Lawrence. On top of their defense just already underperforming at an extremely alarming rate, that even in that win against the Giants last week, neither of us were whelmed at all. It was like, that was if the Giants had a semi-competent quarterback who could sustain some type of drive, and they outgained them, they outpossessed the Cowboys. The Giants dominated them. They just couldn't convert in the red zone. And against teams with legitimate quarterbacks, i.e. the Saints, i.e. the Ravens, you get blown out. So I'm seeing these really startling trends with this Dallas team to make me believe that they are just not a good team whatsoever. And I love Dak. I think he's been playing well this season, not to the level that you expect. He came in with, the $260 million contract, but I do expect a little bit more out of him. He's been playing fine. And the connection with CD looked really good in the Giants game. So I'm not ready to write them off yet. I know it looks like I have by having them out of the playoffs here. But they showed me a lot, Laraib. This is a big stretch coming up for their defense, for them that had a mini bye. Hopefully, for their sake, Sunday Night Football coming up against the Steelers, huge test in Pittsburgh. That's going to be an awesome game, and we'll get to that in our next episode. Who are some of the teams for you, Laraib, though, who didn't quite make the cut that you want to give a special shout out that, you could see a world where they get their stuff together and make the playoffs?
I have two teams right now. One I'm not so convinced in is the Atlanta Falcons. If Kirk Cousins can continue to, that's certainly a game they should have lost, minus one fluke pick six and one, muffed punt for a touchdown over there. If Kirk Cousins can continue to, get back from that injury and start to work in, Bijan hasn't looked like that league winner that he's supposed to be.
Tyler Algier has.
Algier has really come in and taken a lot of that workload. And then Drake London and Kyle Pitts are kind of nowhere to be seen in those games. And so we've been saying this for the past, 2 or 3 years. It's something in Atlanta about just not getting the ball to your playmakers has been the issue over there. And so we'll see how they continue with that. But a team that I really think has a good shot is the Washington Commanders. I guess this is another team that I'm just drinking the Kool-Aid on. But Jaden Daniels has played very well offensively. And that defense really shut down the Cardinals for the most part on that game on Sunday. And so we know that defense is going to give up a lot of points, but Jaden Daniels, if he continues to play how he's been playing, I think they have a good shot, maybe not a great shot, but a chance to make the playoffs.
Well, Rob, I mean, I thought it was honestly kind of disrespectful how you immediately noted that we both didn't have the Cowboys. I thought the most alarming thing was when neither of us had the Commanders. They're the ones sitting on top of their division right now. They're the ones 3-1 who've looked pretty damn dominant the past few weeks, at least offensively, just all the consecutive scoring drives and just constantly moving the ball down the field. Jaden Daniels looking awesome offensively. And it wouldn't shock me if it could just be something where we're sitting here. We don't have enough of a sample size yet. The defense definitely scares us, but is it a thing where we just want to see more? We want to see more from Jaden. Is it sustainable? Is it just the color of that Washington Commanders jersey that kind of gives us a little spook? But you can't deny Cliff Kingsbury, what he's been able to do with this offense, how efficient it is. I did see kind of an alarming stat, though, Laura, and they were talking about the highest completion percentage through the first 4 games of the season. And it had number 1, Jaden Daniels, number 2, Tom Brady, number 3, Kyler Murray, number 4, Kyler Murray. And I was like, that's weird. 2 Cliff Kingsbury teams doing that back-to-back with Kyler Murray. And now, you have Jaden Daniels, similar style of offense. What we see from Cliff and his offenses, at least in Arizona, is they took major steps back, further on into the season. So I wonder if that will hold up with Washington. So I just think we both need to see more with this team. A team I want to give a special shout out to, Laura, is the Chicago Bears. And I thought you may have been knowing that. I already have 3 NFC North teams in the playoffs, so it's hard to find a spot for them. Clearly, just the least talented out of the 4 teams. But this defense has been playing awesome football. They shut Matthew Stafford and the
Oh,
Rams
they
down
shut
last
down
week
Jordan Whittington and
in
Tutu
Chicago.
Atwell.
In
If I hear
Chicago.
in
In
Chicago one more time.
Chicago. Brutal September winds, forcing the Rams back to their sunny beaches in LA. Anyway, I just think the Chicago defense is playing awesome football. Eberflus clearly has a knack for the defensive side of the ball. He's just a good defensive coach. He's proven this. It just, is he the right fit for a quarterback like Caleb Williams long term? That is still yet to be seen. But Caleb looking more comfortable. They got the running game going in the last game. DeAndre Swift had his first awesome game of the year. Roschon Johnson got a touchdown. And, only 23 attempts for Caleb Williams. That's not obviously ideal. You want to have a balanced game with a good passing and rushing attack. But if you're able to run the ball that successfully and just have Caleb hit the easy ones, just manage an offense, as a young quarterback, that's all you need from him. And especially with this defense, I do believe that the Bears are a good team. And I just wanted to give them their flowers here because they are playoff caliber. I'll say that.
As much as I hate to admit it, I have to agree.
In Chicago.
The defense has been playing spectacular throughout the season. And Caleb Williams, I didn't like how you disagreed where, you like to have a balance. I think, if they run the ball more and have him throw less, that's honestly a good thing for Caleb Williams. The less he has to force the ball somewhere, the less he has to roll around in the pocket and, do some whirling dervish and then chuck the ball. I think he's better in the pocket, and more successful plays will come from that. He had some great deep throws to DJ Moore in that game, who has looked a little iffy on the sideline. Not completely bought in with his rookie quarterback yet. But Lewis, let's go ahead and move on to our MVPs who we're feeling right now. No one has really stepped up. Had that great performance in prime time yet. And so, who are you feeling for MVP this year?
Yeah, it's been honestly slim pickings, Rob. I mean, every single guy who's had an awesome has also had a pretty moment. Like no one's, or like a bad loss or something that just, no one's like, oh shoot, they're running away with it right now. But honestly, my pick is Josh Allen. I just think overall he's had, the first 3 games he had were spectacular. I really like the change in this offense, allowing him to do a little bit less, which is funny me saying the MVP when he's doing less, but no, because it's him finding guys. It's his mental game that's upgraded of him, not saying, screw it, I'm going to do it myself, but allowing guys to make plays, looking down the field more, and just this evolution in his game, less turnovers, which has benefited the offense. He had a bad sack fumble on a trick play that was stupid against the Ravens on Sunday night. But besides that, he's been playing pretty clean, pretty efficient football for the Bills. So I just think he has the slight lead right now. I want to give a huge shout out to Patrick Mahomes, who I think as of now, he wouldn't be in contention for MVP. But if we were to slot this as a projection for the end of the season, you lose your best receiver in Rashee Rice. Damn. But, this kind of opens the door for a narrative. Travis Kelce doesn't have it. Isaiah Pacheco goes down. You already lost Hollywood Brown for the entire season. It's just like Mahomes against the world. And if he finds a way to win the division based off just BS and hijinks and tomfoolery, we're going to sit here at the end of the season, Laraib, like, why is it not Mahomes? And, if you've been in the grapevine like I have, there's some interesting receivers on the trade market, including a possible reunion with one Tyreek Hill from Miami, which I think would be pretty interesting to complete the 3P, bringing Tyreek Hill back home. But made some bad mistakes. But if we're doing any projecting, I think he has a good shot. I believe he's also the odds-on favorite right now, so it's not like I'm breaking any crazy news. I do have a dark horse. I just want to give Mahomes a shout out.
Yeah,
Laurab.
you and I agree on our first two, but I'm going to go ahead and throw out my dark horse. He's a rookie quarterback, Lewis. And
Jaden,
no rookie has won the MVP since Jim Brown in 1957.
bear down,
If
Caleb.
there's anyone who can do it, it is going to be Jaden Daniels. The way that they've been playing, the expectations that they had before the season, and what they can do this season, I think he has a not Caleb Williams, I'm talking about Jaden Daniels. You can take the bear away off my screen. I think he has a great opportunity. We saw CJ Stroud, who was top 5 last year. It's a team that has awful expectations and steps up, wins their division, and makes the playoffs, wins a playoff game. Jaden Daniels can have that same thing happen to him. With the Eagles, they have injuries and a bad defense. The Cowboys don't look like themselves. The division is open for him to take it if he wants. And if he continues that level of play, if there's not a guy that jumps off the page like Allen or Mahomes, it could very easily be a year where we see a rookie win the MVP again.
Yeah, I really like that one. And the way he's playing, I mean, you could argue right now he's the MVP. And I would hear you because he's doing historic things, not just for rookies, not just for the franchise, but for quarterbacks of all time. Just the back to back games with over 90% completion percentage and just the start to the season with the completion, just what he's been able to do, just the confidence, the bravado, just the way he's swung this Commanders franchise. Honestly, I mean, if I'm a Commanders fan right now and all the shit I've been through the past few years, the past 30 years with Dan Snyder and his just stench in the building, flushing that out, new start, and we have this young, fun, just smiling quarterback who I'd be so proud of. It's just an awesome time for Commanders fans. So a lot of stuff that they're just loving these past 2 weeks in Commander Land. But the guy I wanted to shout out, Laurent, not the sexiest of names, a guy we've given a lot of flack to, but I think he's been playing very excellent ball this year. That's Brock Purdy, Laurent. I mean, what he's been able to do, he hasn't had the full Avengers, Laurent. Christian McCaffrey hasn't played a game. Debo's missed time. Kittle's missed time. Brandon Ayuk has looked garbage. So it's him and Jawan Jennings just balling out together. He's had great numbers. I really love his scrambling ability, getting out of the pocket, making throws down the field. I thought he's played besides the game in Washington or in Minnesota, who apparently Minnesota just the greatest defense ever. But Purdy's been having a sneaky, very good season. And if we're doing a little projection here, if he continues this, he's going to have the team success most likely. And he's just been playing excellent, excellent football. That I think Purdy could have a real shot. The advanced stats are going to follow. That I think Purdy, I want to give him his flowers. He's playing good football.
Yeah, that's also another one I have to agree with you on. He's been playing just solid football. The reason that they lost that Rams game wasn't because of him. It was because of that defense who hasn't just hasn't shown you that they are that same unit from last year. And it's been a lot on Brock Purdy.
Fred Warner is still him, though.
Yeah, those Madden animations are not wrong. He is like that. As someone who experiences that on a nightly basis in Madden, they're not wrong on his jumping ability. But no, besides him, the defense just has not looked up to par. It's been a lot on Brock Purdy. And if they want to win this division, it's going to be tough. And it's probably going to be on without McCaffrey for the most of the season. And so Brock Purdy, if he continues to play how he does, and again, like we mentioned, if there isn't a clear-cut guy at the end of the season, could very well be Purdy.
Yeah, let's go ahead. I don't know what word that just came out of my mouth, but let's go ahead and move on to our final quarter season preview. We have, you know what? Screw it. What is your Super Bowl matchup post week 4? Who do you believe in right now, Larab?
The two teams who were promised to make it last year will do it this year. It will be the Detroit Lions going to the Big Easy to face the Baltimore Ravens in the Super Bowl as Jared Goff gets his revenge and his first stinker against the Patriots, and he comes up big against Baltimore.
Now, the game is in New Orleans, Larab, and I did think about this. Sometimes the stories write themselves. I have the Kansas City Chiefs facing the Detroit Lions in New Orleans. I'm not, it's hard for me to pick against Kansas City, Laura. I've seen them look awful, just like the end of last year. And you kept picking against them. I'm like, I'm not picking against Mahomes. I'm sorry. I can't even give you football reasons at this point. I'm just telling you, he's going to find a way to win. Whatever Chief Voodoo magic is going to come out is going to come out. And you just had a feeling watching that Chargers game. It's over. The moment you saw Justin Herbert not look like Justin Herbert, it didn't matter what happened in that game. Rashee Rice injury, awful Mahomes interception, a fumble. Chiefs go, or Chargers go up 10-0. It did not matter, Laraib, because in the back of every football fan's head is the Chargers just don't have the juice. They don't have the juice. And this Chiefs defense has been awesome. Our guy, Trent McDuffie, he's just been incredible in the back end. And Chris Jones, he's the most underrated defensive lineman in all of football. He never gets brought up in the talks with the guys like TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, but the way he's able just to disrupt games, especially in the biggest moments, against the Ravens last year when he had the strip sack against Lamar and all the pressures he had against Purdy in the Super Bowl. He just comes away with the biggest pressures, the biggest moments. And I agree with you, the Lions, Rob. I just think they're the most talented team in the NFC. And it just, I think they're due. So that is my Super Bowl prediction.
Well, still a long, long season to go, Lewis, and we'll see who gets there to the Big Easy for Super Bowl, 58. But before we
9.
close off our episode, we have Thursday night football with the Buccaneers traveling to Atlanta to play the Falcons. Falcons favored by 1.5. Who do you got?
I have the Atlanta Falcons at home. Honestly, my analysis is not going to be too spectacular here. I think the Atlanta secondary is very solid. The defense, I thought their defensive line kind of got eaten up by the Saints early on in the game. But once they settled down, I thought the secondary really locked in. And I think this is going to be strength on strength. Buccaneers passing game versus Atlanta's pass defense. So it's going to be interesting to see who's going to get the ball more. And in Atlanta, I think Baker's going to make that one extra mistake. I think the Falcons will find their run game a little more successfully against Tampa. And I think they pull off another nail biter because that's what Atlanta does. So I'm going Atlanta 23 to Tampa 20.
And I'm leaning the exact opposite. Give me the Bake Show. I don't think I've predicted a Buccaneers game right all season long. But Baker Mayfield, Bucky Irvin, watch out for him to have a huge one in this game. I think it's going to be the two rushing attacks that really show up to play. On a short week where we've seen these passing offenses not really step up to where they're supposed to be this year, I think it's going to be on the two running backs. I think Bucky Irvin, rookie, is going to come in and tear up this Falcons defense, really slow down that pass rush and give Baker just enough time to get the ball to his guys. And the Buccaneers win 24-21 and upset the Atlanta Falcons.
All right, Laura. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for everyone who's gotten this far. Quarter season is finally here. Now, not quite, because we do have a 17th week. So not exactly at that mark, but, we'll act like it's a 16-game season. Unfortunately, we could not make this a 2-hour video for y'all like we did 3 years ago. If you want to go see that video, go check it out. Screw it. Why not? Go show us some love. But besides that, Laura, anything else you got for us?
No, I think that's the First Goal Podcast. Signing off.
Peace.